I would like to thank one of my subscribers, Rachel Kitaka. I sure hope I'm saying your name right, for this particular story that came out in the Daily Mail March 1st, 2018. Unclaimed bodies pile up as opioid overdose death rates soar and burial costs overwhelm the government. Oh boy, spending more money on the junkies, y'all. Unclaimed bodies are piling up across the U.S. as state and local governments struggle to keep up with payments to the funeral homes that spend thousands to bury them. In 2004, report estimated that there were 40,000 unclaimed bodies stored in morgues across the U.S., and experts say that number has risen dramatically in recent years, in part due to the opioid plague. More than 115 people die from the opioid overdoses each day. Now, the commission that Trump put together says 175, and that was last summer. So, in my opinion, is probably over 200, probably about 220, somewhere around there per day, because that number rises every single day. Um, and the most affected population that are in lower income groups who are less likely to leave money behind to cover burial expenses. And we know those are probably your rural, poor, and, people in these small towns that are really poor because we know that this plague has not hit the black community like it has hit the white community. Funeral homes across the U.S. have been overwhelmed by the number of bodies that need to be taken care of as they shoulder the costs and wait for the government to reimburse. So I guess these are some of the coffins of unclaimed bodies that he has in his basement. Yeah, because it says right here, Peter Steffen pictured in the funeral director's home in Worcester, Massachusetts, handles dozens of unclaimed bodies each year. He is pictured in the basement where several of the bodies are stored. Wow. That's crazy. These are human beings, someone's mother, father, sister, brother. Peter Steffen, a funeral director who buries dozens of unclaimed bodies a year in central Massachusetts, said, "What do you do with these people? If I leave this place this way, the poor won't have too many options." In 15 states, the government set aside money each year to cover the cost of cremating and burying the deceased who are left with no assets behind. Other states push the financial burden down to the local level. The number of bodies that require government funding has grown as the opioid plague, which claimed the lives of more than 64,000 last year, worsens. Opiates are now the leading cause of death for adults under 50. In West Virginia, drug overdose victims have used up nearly all state government money budgeted for the unclaimed dead. West Virginia has the highest rate of opioid deaths in the country, accounted for 52 per 100,000. The state saw a 25% increase in opioid related deaths from 2015 to 2016, according to the executive director of the State Funeral Director Association, Robert Kims. Homes that bury the indigent and unclaimed from March on will have to try to recoup money from the state later, but there is no guarantee they will be paid back. Wow. Well, that's a way to discourage people from burying bodies. You don't pay them at all. They foot the expense themselves, which I'm sure that's not their intention to do. They probably believe that state is going to reimburse them. Lawmakers are considering lowering the payment from $1,250 to $1,000 to make the fund last longer, Kim said. In Massachusetts, a dwindling number of funeral homes are willing to shoulder the cost of cremation or burial of unclaimed bodies because the state has failed to keep up with the reimbursements. Funeral directors in the states are reimbursed $1,110 for each unclaimed body buried. That payment, which is intended to cover the cost of labor, the casket, the transportation of the corpse, and burial plot, hasn't risen in 35 years, despite an estimate 150% inflation rate in that period. Many funeral directors have said the actual cost of burying an unclaimed body is double what the government pays them. Cremation is a cheaper option of disposing unclaimed bodies, but it is only possible if a family member signs off. On average, cremation costs about 1/3 of what burial costs, which that makes sense because, you got to get a contractor out to dig out the ground. And, things have to be set up a certain way to store a body in the ground, where cremation, you don't have to put quite as much effort into cremating a body. But that's crazy. And look at this picture. This picture is hundreds of cremated remains, unclaimed bodies are stored in the basement of Stefan's funeral home, dating back to the 1800s. Well, I would think by now nobody's going to claim that body if it's been there since the 1800s. I think I would just put that thing in the ground. Who's going to come? Probably all the family members are dead from that era. Wow. Stephan said that Massachusetts lawmakers should require local health boards to approve cremation when relatives don't come forward within 30 days. He and his supporters, including Democratic State Senate President Harriet Chandler, say they believe it would make more funeral homes willing to help out with abandoned bodies. Directors recently became eligible for an extra $1,000 if they accept bodies from the Massachusetts Medical Examiner's Office, which investigates suicides and suspicious and accidental deaths. But that accounts only for some bodies. Robert Lawler, director of a funeral home in Boston that buries about 100 bodies each year, as long as you have 2 or 3 funeral homes that are willing to do this, it is not a problem. But what happens when we decide we can't do it anymore? Stephan arranged the burial of Boston Marathon bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev, is often the go-to funeral director for police, nursing home, and hospitals. Yeah, I remember that. There were 2 brothers that did that Boston bombing, and one was killed and the other one survived. I remember that. Okay. This is employee at a funeral home in Boston lowers a casket containing the body of James Oram, 82, into the ground. Oram died in a nursing home. His body was left unclaimed. Yeah, because they throw their people away. They'll put them in a nursing home and walk away. I remember I went there to visit I went there with a friend to visit her grandmother, and they were telling me some of those patients didn't even get visits at all. Once their families brought them to the nursing home, that was it. They never even came back to visit them. I mean, that's how cold these people are. Stephan recounted the details of when a man named James Oram, 82, arrived at his funeral home in Worcester, hours after dying at a nursing home in January. Oram's body spent about a month in an unfinished basement in a large refrigerator where Stefan can keep 3 bodies as he looks for relatives. Money and burial space. Other bodies are placed in a casket and stored in a room, kept cold. Stefan eventually discovered that Aron died with about $2,000, money that paid for his burial instead of the state. The basement also holds hundreds of containers of cremated remains that were never picked up by relatives, some of which dated back to 1800s. Why would you have, wouldn't you be able to put those in the ground, being that it's been well over 100 years that you've had it there? I mean, it just doesn't make sense that they would keep hanging on to that. I would say after so many centuries, it's been a few centuries now, I don't think anybody's coming. That just seems kind of crazy. I don't know what kind of laws they got, but that just seems crazy. But I'm not surprised that people get their family members cremated and they just walk away and never go back for the bodies. Probably didn't even make the full payment. That's probably why they didn't go back. The state of Ohio used to pay $750 to homes, but now shifted the burden to the local government. Today, some communities offer a set fee, while some smaller towns often won't budget for it. And funeral directors have to fight to get $350, according to Scott Gilligan. Wow, that's terrible. They don't care about these people at all, y'all. This government don't care about no goddamn body. General Counsel for the National Funeral Directors. A lot of times they just do it as good citizens, Gilligan said. In Georgia, the costs are also handled on the local level. Floyd County Coroner Gene Proctor said he handled about 90 unclaimed sets of remains last year. Last year, he had to call 5 or 6 funeral homes every time he had an unclaimed body before he could find one willing to bury the body for $1,250. The county provided, he said. I couldn't blame them because they're a business and they have to make money to survive. And here I am asking them to cost themselves money, he said. The county recently passed an ordinance that allows cremation of unclaimed and pays $750, which Proctor said it made a big impact. Ooh, that man really do look like an undertaker, don't he? Oh, creepy looking and all. Okay. Yeah, you can tell this is a poor person's burial site because there's no markings or anything on the plot. I mean, you just look at all the spots all around him. You don't see any markers, so they just literally just bury them and that's it. Yeah. All right, y'all. Boy, I tell you, this is reality of what's going on in this country. There's so many things that are not being spoken of, and there's so many things that you don't even think about that are all connected to this drug plague. Wow. It is so hard to believe. This has been going on for 20 years nearly. And those are all cremated bodies right here in these pictures. Never picked up by family. So he dropped the body off and kept right on getting up. That's what they did to these funeral directors. Ooh, I wouldn't want that job. I couldn't see nobody just dumping bodies on me, and I'm not even getting paid. I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't deal with handling all those unclaimed bodies. That's too much. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.